church. Hey, I don't know if you caught last week's episode of the Connecting Point podcast, but if you didn't, I would recommend go back and watch that because we started a brand new series where we are studying the book of James. It's an epistle written by actually Jesus' brother. Jesus' brother wrote this epistle, which we find in the New Testament. So I just suggest you go back, listen to that episode, catch up to where we're at, because we're going to pick up where we left off last week. Now, last week I did read James chapter 1 and verses 5 through 8, but let me just reread this passage again so we can pick up where we left off. James chapter 1, verse 5, if anyone of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. James says that God gives liberally. You know what that word means? I'm glad you asked. Let me just tell you. Okay, liberally means generously, lavishly, unstingy, charitable. Okay, that's how God gives to those who ask. But wait, there's a catch. There's always a catch, isn't there? Let's read it again because we absolutely can't miss this part. Verse 6. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. There is a catch. The first part of this we get. Man, I tell you what, as believers, as Christians, we understand the faith part, okay? We got to have faith. You do. You have to have faith. And everyone knows it's all about having faith. You need to believe God's going to ask, going to do what you ask him to do. And when you do, God responds, right? That's what we believe. God listens, God acts, and things happen for you when you have faith. We get that. We understand it. It's like you're preaching to the choir here, brother. We got this. But what we often miss is the flip side. We get the faith side of this, but we often miss the flip side. We totally understand the side with the benefits. Oh yeah, we get it all. The good stuff totally makes sense to us. But what we don't always wrap our heads around are the consequences. We don't even like to look at the other side of this, but we can't do that. Look at what James says about a person who does not have faith. He says that he's like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. He's just like a wave. It's just like tossed back and forth. I remember when I was a little boy, one time we went up north to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, right? Da UP with da Upers. we went to this little island called Mackinac Island. Anybody, I don't know if you've ever been there. You could put it in the comments or something. Let me know you've been to Mackinac. But it's this little island. It's located in Lake Huron. And basically they have no motor vehicles on the island. You got to ride a ferry boat out from the main part of Michigan out to this island. So, it's a pretty exclusive place. Basically, just a place to to go on vacation. In case you're curious, I was. So I looked this up again just to see, and it's a 1,500 square foot home, which is a pretty average size, and this one wasn't even nice. Yeah, they had circa 1978 green shag carpeting. Okay, anyone want to know what the asking price was? And this is from a few years ago that I looked this up. Is $500,000. Okay, on Mackinac Island. You want a junky 1,500 square foot home on Mackinac Island? Even a few years back, 5-6 years ago, when I looked this up, it was like $500,000. I don't even want to look it up today. Like I'd be afraid. Between interest rates and inflation and everything, like it's got to be crazy expensive. So anyway, we were up there. We visited the island, and when I was a kid, and we had a really nice time there. I don't know how much houses cost back then. I didn't care when I was a kid. Okay. Okay. But like the lake was so nice and it was smooth and it was calm as we rode over to the island, and it was a double-decker ferry. So, like it was really cool. You could go up on the top and it was open air and just, you could really enjoy the boat ride. It was nice. Well, apparently as it was getting closer to nighttime, the weather had changed and the lake conditions changed along with it. Now, it was extremely windy. So we're getting on the boat, and this time they're not allowing anybody up on the upper deck of the boat. They said everyone has to be inside for this trip. We get in, and we find a seat on the lower deck, and I look up to the front of the boat. Now, normally they've got these nice big glass windows all the way across the front of the boat, and I look up there, they're covered with wood. That probably should have been a sign. Like, it maybe clued us in, like, this is not going to be quite the same ride we had on the way over to the island. But I don't think anything, even if they would have tried, I don't think they could have prepared us for what happened next. The funny thing about water, right, is like I can take a little bit of water, like you can just splash it in my face or whatever, and like oh, that didn't even hurt, right? I didn't even get a bruise. But you get about a jillion gallons of this stuff, and it's all churned up into waves, and look out, okay? I mean, you can ask my mom. I am not lying, okay? I ain't never in my life been seasick like that, ever. Those waves, they took a 10-ton boat and they just knocked it around like it was a tinker toy, okay? And that's kind of like you and me when we don't have faith, right? We're like that boat just tossed back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and everybody's getting seasick, pushed all around, and there's so little we can do to fight against the power of those waves. And brace yourself for the hard truth, okay? James says that the person without faith who is expecting something from God is a double-minded man, unstable. In how many ways? Did y'all read this? in all his ways. Anybody ever met unstable people? Anybody? Duh. Look who I'm talking to. I'm kidding. Y'all are so stable you could be horses, okay? I'm just saying. But let me just get serious here for a moment, okay? Faith leads us to where God answers. Doubt leads us to instability. Wow, 8 verses, and that's all we got so far. Let's keep going. All right, verse 9. Let the lowly brother glory in his exaltation, but the rich in his humiliation, because as a flower of the field he will pass away. For no sooner has the sun risen with a burning heat than it withers the grass, its flowers falls, and its beautiful appearance perishes. So the rich man also will fade away in his pursuits. The thing that's funny about passages like this, almost nobody reads a passage like this and then relates to the rich person. Nobody. It's true. Like, no, I didn't just read that and you're like, oh yeah, I'm the rich one fading away. Like, nobody did that when I was reading that. It's just true. And there are a lot of different passages that compare rich and poor. And most of the time, we don't look at ourselves as rich. We don't. It's like that old study they did like a long time ago. And I don't remember who did it or even exactly how it goes, but it's something like this. It's like if you ask somebody who made, let's say you ask somebody that made $30,000 a year, like how much do you need to make in order to be rich? Then they would say 60,000. And if you ask somebody who made 60,000, how much do you need to be rich? They would say what? They would say, 100,000, right? And if you ask somebody who makes 100,000, they'd say 150,000 and so on and so forth, right? It's always a number higher. It's always higher. It's always someone that makes more. They're the person that, that's what it would take to be rich. And the bottom line is this, that rich and poor is a perspective thing, okay? It's all a matter of perspective. What I think of when someone says rich or poor might not be the same thing that you think of. We could go to another country and they would, like if just the average person there would probably think of something different, right? Each person is going to look at that in a different way. The reality is that both rich and poor, abundance and lack, all of these come with its own set of trials and tribulations and temptations. Whether you are rich or poor doesn't exempt you from having problems. It just doesn't. Which leads us into verse 12. But you know what? We are out of time again. So you know what? I'm going to save that for our next episode. We're going to pick it up in verse 12 next time. So let's just pray. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you that for this time that we've had to spend with you, to spend in your word, to spend in the book of James, learning from Jesus' own brother. Things that are true, that can help us in our life. And God, I just pray that they would, in Jesus' name. Hey, God bless you. Thank you for joining me today. The Lord bless and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you. The Lord be gracious to you and turn his face towards you and give you peace.